Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. I'm Gary Polland.
And I'm David Jones.
This week on Red, White, and Blue, we're going to be talking about public safety, a very important topic in our community, as it always is, David, even to you. Our two guests are two people who are in the know. First, Ray Hunt, who was the past president of the Houston Police Officers Union and a longtime friend of the show. I think, Ray, you first appeared on the show probably 14 years ago.
Probably so.
That tells you how long we've all been around. And Marty Lancton is the president of the Houston Professional Firefighters Association. These are the guys on the front lines and their members who protect us all from all the bad people out there.
Okay, Gary, you're excused. You know, if you'd like to go get a drink of water. I mean, anyway, nice speech. Mr. Hunt, today is the 19th anniversary of the bombing of Oklahoma City by a white nationalist, Christian, so-called.
I don't know that he was Christian.
Well, he claims he was.
Okay.
Stopped on a traffic stop.
And recently we've had Charlottesville, where Nazis have been waving flags and the like. We can assume, given the numbers of racially and gender-based incidents that we've heard about that have increased in 2015 and 2016, that there are some people out there who are doing bad things on the basis of gender and race. Okay, and there is now $1 million apparently given to the city to look at gangs and guns. So what I'm asking you is, what do you think our problem here in Houston is as far as that gang kind of activity of the type that I just mentioned?
Gang problems are a serious problem in Houston. MS-13 gang members and other gangs, anytime we catch them doing something, because it's very difficult to catch them, they need to be arrested, they need to be charged, they need to be put away for a very long time, because that's the only way you're going to solve that problem.
You missed two elements to my question. Both of the bomber in Oklahoma City was a white guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The white nationalists in Charlottesville were all white guys. Do you have anybody monitoring the alt-right?
We monitor bad guys. We don't care if they're black, white, Hispanic, blue, green. If we stop somebody or we go arrest someone, we don't look at their race before we make a decision as to whether or not we're going to charge them with that felony. We don't do that. We simply look at the facts, and if we stop somebody and that person is white and they're a bad guy, they're going to jail.
But you don't have you don't have a unit that is established to do anything.
We don't have. Yes, we have several proactive units, and proactive units who are looking for bad guys. People who are breaking into businesses, stealing safes, people who are shooting at people who are stealing guns, people who are buying guns, all those people, and we don't care what color they are. We have a police department that is the most diverse in the country. We're 51% minority. We're very proud of that. And we are 51% minority because of the Houston Police Officers Union. We allow the city of Houston to hire whomever they choose to. They don't have to take the civil service exam like every other civil service city, because we gave that up in bargaining. We let them put whomever they want in the academy. That's why our police department looks like our community. That's why our command staff looks like our community, and that's why our union looks like our community.
Okay, last question, Gary, and then you're going to have the rest of the show.
Thank you, because I'm ready.
The mayor announced it with the police chief, I think behind him is a picture in the paper, of $1 million that's going to be used for gang interruptions and for gun violence. And in fact, Ray, as you probably know, you can open up the paper any day and see 6 shootings, 3 or 4 dead, all from guns. And so how is this money going to be divided up? And who's going to see it?
Our crime analysis looks at the areas where the greatest crime is occurring.
Hotspots.
Hotspots. They will do an analysis on that, and they'll do an overtime program for that area. This is what we're focusing on. When you're 1,500 officers short, like the Houston Police Department is, you can't do a lot of proactive policing. Most of it's reactive. We're simply responding to calls for service. Fortunately, we're one of the only cities left in Texas. Dallas doesn't do this. San Antonio, Austin, that has proactive units, tactical teams that are looking at specific problem areas and going and trying to solve that particular problem. We're fortunate to have that, and this money is going to allow us to have the overtime programs to continue doing that more than what we're doing it now.
So you think it's a problem, the guns?
I think gangs are a serious problem.
You don't.
Guns in the hands of gang members are serious problems, David.
The mayor and
you have to say it 3 times for David.
Guns in the hands of police officers is not a serious problem.
Okay, but the mayor and the police chief said that there were several things that they would like to see a task force study to determine whether or not we could come up with safety regulations for guns in Houston. You know, do you have any ideas about how to help them?
Yeah, we completely
Other than just arresting bad guys?
We completely support people who are securing their guns in their homes. We completely support making sure guns are out of the hands of criminals and out of the hands of kids. 100% support that. We're not opposed to background investigations on people. We're not opposed to people who have serious mental issues having their guns removed from them. I don't think anybody's opposed to that.
Okay, what about making it a fine if they fail to report a stolen or a lost gun? Make it a fine.
What if you don't know it's gone?
Well, then you have to go tell somebody, my gun is gone.
How would I at what point? I've got probably 12 guns in my house and I probably haven't looked at them in 10 years.
Well, in David's world, that means you should get fined
Do you not
because
have a
you're
gun
not
at your
keeping
house
track
for
of your
safety?
guns. No,
but
David is going to take it for the bad guys. All right, David, your
yeah.
time's up. We'd be quiet for 24 minutes. Okay, Marty.
Marty's here, you know.
Marty's sitting there patiently waiting to talk about the fire department. And my first question for you, Marty, is I've read recently there's concern about the state of the equipment for the fire department. So is this another area where the city's basically been deferring what needs to be done so you all have the kind of equipment your members need to protect the public?
Well, I think what you just had mentioned is exactly what has happened. When the city fails to make the priorities of the citizens' public safety, what you see is a deferred maintenance and deferred fleet schedule that was actually implemented in the late 90s. And the reason why it was implemented in the late 90s was Dateline hired an independent investigator who came down and showed that the status of the fleet within the Houston Fire Department was absolutely disturbing. And they then took that piece from the investigation of Dateline, put in a fleet replacement program that was both cost effective to the taxpayers and safe, most importantly, safe for the men and women who have to ride on it. The city stopped funding that in the early 2000s, and you need on attrition 9 engines, 4 ladder trucks a year just to keep up. The city has been supplying 4 engines and 2 ladders for over a decade. And what that does is put the citizens of Houston's lives at risk. And it puts, more importantly, again, the men and women who put their lives on the line every day, it puts their lives at risk. And it's something that has to be paid attention to.
Yeah, so basically what happened, the politicians took the money that was supposed to your department, and probably your department too, Ray.
75% of our fleet is over mileage.
And use the money for other things like the $1 million homework helpline that the city council thought was a priority, even though the school districts provide it now and things like that. I mean, when is it that your unions are going to get out there and do battle with the politicians who are glad-handing everyone else when the driver of citizen support for city government is public safety? I wonder about that.
Well, Ray might have a different opinion, but I can tell you that I think the politicians at City Hall might have a different opinion. The firefighters have put over $1 million of their own money into data and research and analytics to show everything that you just talked about and to call out the people that do not want to make public safety a priority. The biggest misnomer and the biggest issue that firefighters have is when the city says that over half of the city's budget is in public safety. Well, let me tell you something. It's not. The police department's budget is almost double what the fire department's is. And I'm not saying that.
And there's not, and they don't have enough either.
They don't have enough either. They need and deserve what they have. But when you lump in a department that's the 3rd largest municipal fire department in the nation, and you don't provide the most basic resources,
we're asking for trouble.
And I don't think he's just blaming this mayor and this council.
No,
you heard
this
he
has
said
been on
since
for a
early
long
2000s.
time.
I think we need to distinguish.
Tradition.
I think we need to distinguish public safety issues. You, sir, have people with guns pointing at you. All right, and you have a gun pointing back, and there's interactions with citizens. Some of them bad guys, many of them bad guys. That's public safety.
That's
believe
2 days a
me.
year.
That's public safety.
David.
80% of your calls are basically ambulance calls. You're sending fire trucks for basically ambulance calls. When my mother, who lives in a retirement home, if she were to fall, and this is a policy, if she were to fall and she can't get up, they can't pick her up. They've got to call a fire truck to come pick her up. Now, that ought to be an EMT, if you want to call it that, I don't know, service. And, you know, you're asking for a pay raise, and I'm thinking that 80% of your calls are for helping people.
Well, so what you're just describing right now is what the error in between statistics and the call types. The Houston Fire Department only has 2 call types when you call 911. It either gets categorized as EMS or fire. Well, in that EMS category, you have car wrecks, pin-ins, rescues, everything that does not involve something that is on fire, which requires a fire truck, which requires equipment, which requires the personnel, not only under the national NFPA standards, which the city does not adhere to in any way, shape, or form, both in the way that we deploy resources, but also within the health and safety of the firefighters. So you're talking about a percentage of the calls being typed as EMS. Fires are up in Houston, not down. We did an in-depth analysis based on working man hours of every call that has ever been run in 2015 within the Houston Fire Department. That 80% you're talking about is 56 to 44. It is not 80%. The 44% of the required man hours,
but I could be wrong,
are for what is needed.
I think
in a
Ray
fire
told
truck.
me that anyway.
Yeah, right.
But in line with what David asked about, are there EMS calls that don't require a fire engine to go with?
You know, you guys bring up an excellent point. It was not our decision to deploy fire trucks to calls. You know who that was? That was under past city administrations who wanted to put a Band-Aid on a problem and not give the resources. The Houston Fire Department has not increased the resources in a decade. And we have, on average, 300 people a day moving into Houston. Our call volume is near 400,000 calls a year, and we have not increased that. So we don't go unless you call, and that's what we want to get across.
Kind of bring closure on this topic, what do y'all need to do your job?
Basic working equipment, fair and equal pay for the firefighters. We are losing firefighters to other departments at a staggering rate. For the first time, we are losing more firefighters that are going to other departments now than are retiring.
We just lost 2 to the Houston Police Department, right?
Yep. Well,
We got 2 in our current class.
Why is it that you only have one high water vehicle and the police department has 5?
Well, you could probably ask why the police department continues to get overtime and the fire department gets neglected. I don't know. But again, the police department deserves and needs the resources. There's a difference between the opinion of some of us, which is we think that the police department needs more resources. We think they need more officers. But what we also have to focus on is if we don't look at this from a holistic perspective, you're going to continue to shore up a sinking ship with your pinky.
Is it true you got your last pay raise in 2011 and that was only 3%?
2011 was our last contract. It was a 0%, 0%, 1%, and there has been a cumulative 3%
over 4 years,
end after 7 years.
So they haven't kept pace with inflation.
They haven't kept pace with inflation,
okay,
with the cost
and so
of insurance, anything.
Let me.
question.
Yeah. I just want to. This comes right in your wheel thing. Just wheel thing, and that is, you guys got rolled at the legislature as far as the pension is concerned. You know, the $1 billion bond passed. The legislature endorsed Sylvester's plan, and now it seems to me like this is a little bit payback time. You're coming in with you want pay equality with cops.
That's always
you want a
been true.
referendum. And so it looks to me like this is payback for the mayor who rolled you during the legislature.
Well, listen, the firefighters that are in the field, there's almost 4,000 of them in the association. And being the 3rd largest municipal fire department, these men and women go out every day. And they don't ask how much money you have, what your race is, what your ethnicity, what your, how much money you make. But what Houston firefighters do need is the acknowledgement for the work that they do. And I think that if you look at the pay scales and the disparity in pay that has happened over the last 15 years, it's pretty staggering. Now, it was the city's position, not the firefighters. We don't represent, by the way, the association does not represent the pension fund. The pension fund, let me sidetrack, pension fund agreed to $800 million, their pension board did, in benefit concessions over 30 years. The bill that passed was $1.2 billion. Now, you explain to the men and women who put their lives on the line every day why it is that was there. I don't have the answer for that. But the focus that we have had is to shore up the disparity in pay that has happened between the salaries of the firefighters versus 3% in 7 years versus almost 30% with the police officers.
Well, I guess the question related to that is what happens in other major cities? Do they have pay equality or they don't?
That is a great question.
It is a great question.
New York Fire Department, Police Department have pay parity.
All right.
Chicago Police and Fire Department, the ones we compare ourselves to, have pay parity. LA Police and Fire have pay parity.
But what's happened, and Ray, this is fair to say, the police are greatly understaffed. I mean, I know you've been complaining. I mean, we go back to the early beginning of the show. Through numbers of administration, not just Sylvester, he's just the latest in the long line of people who have neglected the police department and the fire department, for that matter. At night, the number of people on the street, police officers on the street at night, if the people knew the truth, they'd be stunned. It's so few. Because I know, you get out on the freeways after midnight, Loop 610, it's like Fast and Furious. There's no police around. People are driving 90, 95 miles an hour. They're racing. They're doing all crazy stuff because there are no police. And I know that because you talked about the numbers. At 1,500, that's not even a number for our police department to be up to what national standards are, isn't it? Aren't we like 4,000 or 5,000
Make
short?
him tell you where he's going to get the money to pay for your extra.
Well, first,
police
let's find out how we're short we are.
We're very short. We have less than half the number of police officers that Chicago
That's just scary.
has. Less than half. Chicago
Scary.
has about 12,000. We have 5,000.
Could we use 12,000?
Yeah.
Well, no, we don't need 12,000. We could use, sure, if you want your theft of your lawnmower investigated the next day, we could use 12,000 officers.
And the
But if
Chicago
you're
Police
willing
Department is being run by a federal judge.
We understand that. We don't want the feds in our police department because we know how well they do in our country. We think we can do it a lot better. But here's the situation that we're looking at. We compare ourselves to our comparable cities. Our comparable cities are not New York, LA, and Chicago. Our comparable cities are Fort Worth, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. That's who we're competing with for people. When my nephew or cousin did not get on at the Houston Police Department, he went to the Austin Police Department. When people are in Dallas right now, they go to the Fort Worth Police Department because Dallas has problems with their pay and their pension. So we compare ourselves to our comparable cities. We believe every firefighter in Houston needs a pay raise. We want them compared with the comparable firefighters in the comparable cities.
Okay, but
And
can we afford it? You're a budget man. Can we afford it? Because your pay raise, your pay equity or pay balanced or however it is you're calling it, as far as getting you up to speed with the cops, is going to cost $60 million, and I don't know how is that going to be spread out. We got a $100 million deficit. You're adding to it. In fact, you may even, I guess, be busting the revenue cap.
How about priorities?
Well, I mean, it's asking why shouldn't you pay for it?
Well, that's a great question, and we've actually provided the data and the numbers to show that the Houston firefighters in FY13, the Houston Fire Department brought in $58 million in revenue into the general fund, the city's bottom financial line. Now, in FY16, the Houston Fire Department doubled that to $112 million, and it all went into the general fund, yet the Houston Fire Department budget gets cut. So if you talk about revenue generation instead of cutting, the only department within the city that has increased the revenue to the city's bottom financial line are the Houston firefighters. And there you go. That has where the money is not only brought in with the men and women that are doing more with less, but I don't think the Houston firefighters should have to show or to prove that they deserve fair and equal pay.
But we have to say that the money issue has to be an unfair statement because we don't get to charge $500 for transporting a prisoner to jail.
Too bad.
If you transport a prisoner to the hospital, you get to charge that person. That's on your bottom line. We don't charge for anything.
Maybe you should have user fees, right?
We would love to have that.
Well,
we would
that may
love
be
to
a
be able
good
to charge
idea.
criminals.
I don't think that changes the narrative that you still increased your revenue by 100%. Now, if you were in the private sector, if you had a widget company and this division in your widget company increased the revenue by 100%, you would be on a cruise to Tahiti. You would have a brand new car and a bonus.
And that's exactly
but
why we
instead
want y'all
of
compared to
what
the
the narrative has been is that the Houston firefighters somehow are the reason that the city is in a financial stress when our budget is almost half what the police is. The revenue stream that comes in all goes to the general fund. And what we're simply asking for, and what we have asked for, is a path to get to where we need to be to shore up the disparity in pay.
I will vote for you. I will vote for you if it gets on the ballot, but I'd like for you to commit that you're going to improve your percentages of females in your department
Quotas.
from now 3%. Ray's got 18% in the police department. I think that I should withhold my vote until you show me how you're going to get to 18%.
Yeah, well, and hold that thought before you get there. Understand, David's interested in waiving all physical requirements. It doesn't matter. He just wants quotas.
What does it take to drive an ambulance, Gary?
Look, my nephew is an EMT in Virginia, and you have to be big and you have to be strong, and even given that, he hurt his back. So you have to be physically
Okay, so
able
even
to
that's
do
not
this.
good enough.
No, it's not, because you're not interested in public safety, David. You're interested in quotas. I mean, look, I mean, I'm all for having as many women in the force that can do the job, but I would not waive the requirements because it's a big mistake.
Cop's job is just as tough as a fireman's job.
It's the police, not cops.
We're able to recruit those because of our civil service exam. Our civil service exam, we don't give it to, here's how civil service cities work. You got 50 positions open, you give an exam, the top 50 people who score on that, that's how y'all do it, right? They have civil service. Top 50 people get in the academy, I think. Top 50 people get in the academy.
Top 50 males get in the academy.
We don't do that. We don't do that.
How about qualifications?
We want minimum qualifications, and we have very
good.
strict. I think our qualifications are too strict, especially the drug use. There's certain drugs that if you've ever used them, even 20 years ago,
David wouldn't be eligible.
David probably would not be eligible, but he could probably get there in some.
Now he would pass the physical test.
In Austin, he could.
So
what about the 3%?
The Houston Fire Department not only has
is that low or not?
More
as far as the rest of the
it's
country
an artificial
is concerned.
quota.
Well,
as far as the rest of the country is concerned.
I don't know if I agree with the numbers that you have, but what I can tell you is not only did the Houston Chronicle do a in-depth analysis of where we were 15 years ago and where we are now, we have more females in higher ranked positions than we ever have. And the association absolutely 100% supports diversifying in any way we can. In fact, the association pays for and is paying for our female members to go to women's conferences to bring back tools that will allow us to better diversify. But the standards that are set, the city has the ability to set standards, minimum qualifications, and there has to be a standard in which to be met. It doesn't matter if you're a male or a female. I have worked with lots of females that have the ability to do a better job than myself. So it's not a question of.
So you disagree with Gary about it's not a quota problem. It is a serious issue and one that you need to try to address.
No, David wants quotas. I agree with you. We need to recruit people that have the qualifications, and it doesn't matter what their sex is or any of the other protected classes, which really offends me, by the way, of who they are. It doesn't matter. As long as they're qualified, they meet the qualifications for the police or the fire department, then God bless them, hire
David,
them.
I think it's a little different with the fire department. I don't think it's I don't think the community demands the fire department to look like the community, but I think the community demands for the police department.
Well,
to look
for a
like
long time, the fire department's reputation was white guys only.
Well, I take issue with that. First of all, the Houston Fire Department is extremely diverse. We want a seat at the table with everyone so that their voices are heard. There are things experiences that I do not have, that other people have, that we need to listen to, embrace, and we need to grow with it. So one of the biggest things when it comes to recruiting and retention, we just lost 2 females in the past 2 months to 2 other fire departments because of the pay. Now, you're talking about recruiting qualified candidates. Explain to me how you can get a qualified candidate starting out in the academy making $28,000 versus a police officer making $42,000. Now, again, we believe that the police officers deserve every penny that they get. And what we're simply asking for is for this to be equitable. Now, based on what you were mentioning just a second ago, I think that you would agree with me that you want equality and fair pay for people that are not only working as first responders, but in public safety. And in the state of Texas, you have to be dual certified as a firefighter and in EMS.
Here's why I think Ray's job is a little bit more hazardous than yours. Last month, there were 3 suicides in the Houston Police Department. One of them was named Jason Angeli. Since 2007, there have been 20 suicides.
It's a tough job. But
nationally, there's 140 suicides in 2017 in police departments across the country. There's no federal data that reflects this. This is all just research.
What's the question?
So, what is the position of the Houston Police Department in terms of finding out what the causes are of these people? This is 3 in 1 month is a big number.
Stress.
I think we know what the cause is. The cause is stress. The cause is the fact that you're seeing very dark things on a regular basis and that you have the means to do it readily available. All these things for police officers. You're constantly walking around with your gun on you. All those things, and when a police officer gets to that tipping point, it's a problem. Fortunately, our new president that came in, Joe Gamaldi, brought a plan from New York, which was our HOPA, Houston Officer Peer Assistance. When we have an officer commit suicide, those numbers tick up. We have officers calling, maybe I'm feeling that same way. We have made it very clear to our officers that it's not weak to ask for help. It's not weak to say, I need to take a break from patrol right now. Sergeant, can you put me on the desk for a week? Nobody's going to make fun of you in the Houston Police Department for doing that. We're doing our very best to try to stop that, but we're never going to stop persons who are in this job who see very, very dark things, who are going and seeing children who aren't being able to eat or being slapped by their parents or being burned with a cigarette on their back or their throat slit. and you just go home and forget about that.
Yeah,
And then when you start losing sleep over it, when you lose sleep, you know what happens. Your brain starts doing weird things.
You can't
And
handle it. But it's fair to say, Ray, in a lot of these terrible things that you all see, oftentimes the firemen see it first.
they see it. Listen,
They get shot at.
Let's
the
see, there-
same risky job
there's
that
a
you
lot
all
of-
have, and let me say, I have the utmost respect for the job that both of you and your members do. But I want to ask a question that has bothered me increasingly. The leadership of the police department now is concerned about what I call protective classes. The crimes committed against one class of people that we can continue to divide our society is somehow worse than a crime that would be occurred against, white male.
What's the evidence of that?
Yeah.
Well, the
And I
police
know
chiefs,
that I know that
you
some
know what
of
he's
our
talking
members-
about.
Some of our members won't like this, but I think that we have a very good police chief. I think we have a very good command staff, and I think the fact that we're focusing on some groups that are being targeted, that we have
but-
to do that.
but you have to look at the
But let me just say
numbers.
this: that this
numbers
chief
don't
is
say
not getting
that.
on TV whenever there's a white guy that's killed, and not saying we want to find this turd and put him in jail. He's saying
does it.
we want to put them in
it
jail
just
regardless.
gets no coverage in the media.
Well, because the media makes a determination on
I mean,
what they're
come on,
going to
did you
say.
read the latest story? There are 3 deaths that may be related to alternative sexual lifestyle, but they're not even sure. And this is the reason now we're going to go through all this stuff, because apparently the police are insensitive to people with alternative sexual lifestyle. First of all, I hope that's not true.
I don't
I
think
think
that-
people
Wait a
should
minute,
be. I don't think it's true of the police.
We
So
have-
why do we have to go through all this trouble?
One word answer here. The police chief has said that there's going to be a team of HPD and LGBTQ for training sessions. Do you approve of that happening or not?
Of course, we approve anything that improves our job
But
and the
we
way
have
that
a
we do
problem
things.
with the
Okay.
police now.
That'll
No,
be the,
no, we do
that'll
not.
be the show.
We
That's
do
just,
not have a problem
let
with our
him
police
finish.
now. Our police
There is
are
no
our police are
He
very well
ends
trained.
the show, not me and not Ray.
Our
Ray
police-
ends the show.
Our police are very well trained. Our police are very diverse. We have lots of people who are LGBTQ in our police department. In our union as well. We respect them. We work next to them. We do not care who shows up next to us, so long as they're there to help.
Thanks,
us.
Ray. Thanks,
Including
Marty.
fire.
And we'll be back next week on Red, White, and Blue.